And we get things rolling Thursday night. Guy Haberman in the house.
Holiday weekend. It's the first day of the holiday weekend, Larry.
Is it? Is tonight officially the first day?
Thursday night, Memorial Day weekend. Tomorrow's got to be one of the lesser days of productivity in the American capitalist market.
Yeah, it'll be an easy commute for those of you who are working on a Friday and driving into the city to do so. You'll have an easy commute. You know, always makes me wonder though. It's many times on Friday, it's a quick commute in, but then Friday afternoon, it's a parking lot. So I don't know what's going on there.
I was stuck in that Yerba Buena Treasure Island fire situation last Saturday I know claimed 2 hours of Matt Mayoko's life.
No, that's bad.
Same
of course,
for me.
This weekend was Beta Breakers, so if that's
I was in the city I was in the city on Sunday also. I'm going to the city like it feels like 3 to 4 days a week right now. And because the weather's so good. I'm going in tomorrow. The weather's supposed to, it's just I was there today.
It's hard to beat late May in the Bay Area. It's one of our better weather months for sure. The rain has come and gone. It's probably not going to rain, but more than 2-3 times before Halloween. It's just we've got glorious weather in May. No humidity, nice, not smoky hot, but at the same time sunny and nice. So I'm looking forward to a big weekend as well. We got some Little League baseball. It's gonna be good.
All right.
I was down in Santa Clara this week.
What about your sponsor, Larry?
Oh yeah, thanks to Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. The great Damon Stainbrook, the owner of Pig and a Pickle, Damon and Mary, they work hard at it. They've got a great restaurant. They got 2 great restaurants. Check them out and go get some brisket chili, go get some pulled pork, get some barbecue chicken, and go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Krug sent you. Also, we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use that promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they will match you up to your first $100. And Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, our good friends along the Monterey Peninsula, proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. And if you're a sports cards or sports collectible person, man, you're going to love Sharp Corners. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. Is there anybody that you would like to shout out? I know you have your own group of sponsors for the pod, but
yeah, I will say I'm going to my parents' house on Sunday, big barbecue.
Nice.
Normally I don't give away, but I just today, perfect timing, got a big box of butcherbox.com/ham. Still using the promo code. Maybe I'll change the promo code to Guy, but whatever, it's fine. Just got a bunch of Butcher Box. I got like 6 fillets, several ribeyes.
I remember when you were on 95.7 The Game and you guys would give away a box of meat to like whatever football player joined you, or
did we do that?
Well, I know they did that. I don't know if
I don't think we were. I don't think John and I were there did that.
That maybe it came after, but I always used to laugh because the football players always are like, that's right, I'm getting a box of meat to barbecue. It's like they always dug it.
Yeah, that's such an old radio thing. Like I always think of it as, and I mean this, and I like it. Like it's a cool old thing that used to. People who are younger probably don't remember this, but you used to hear it would always be like a baseball pregame show, right? And the guy would interview a player, and the player, guests of the pregame show get $100 to whatever, I don't know what. That was always a thing. It was like a certificate. Get $100 certificate. It was always like $100 or $25 certificate or something like that.
Have you ever turned down a radio guy? Did you ever turn down an ad or a read or a commercial, as they call it? I was known as the guy who was very commercial friendly, so I rarely turned one down. But my final year at KMBR, they offered me a guy who did like he was a plastic surgeon, and he had a new procedure where you could freeze your fat and it would just fall off, supposedly.
Yeah.
And so I went out there. The sales guy's like, hey, Kruger's out in Danville. Why don't you go meet him? Go talk to him. And I go, let me see the read first. So I saw the read. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sit there and say, use this promo code, freeze your fat. I've done it. It's awesome. I mean, I go, there's limits. I go, I'm a regular guy who likes to.
It's going to hurt your brand.
Yeah. I said, it's going to hurt my brand. I go, I can't do it. I have to say no to freeze your fat. And it was wild. I went into this plastic surgeon's office and I met him, and the people there's lots of people that are having plastic surgery. It's like a burgeoning industry, especially in Northern California. And I walk into this, I'm going to meet one of the clients, and it's like this woman, she's having a breast reduction. She's got a robe on. I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what I'm doing there. I'm like, hey, I was just here to meet the doctor and talk about the commercial. I don't need to be inspecting anybody. I don't want to be in anybody's dressing room. I don't want to be watching, it was, let's just say, bothersome. But I remember I come back, told the sales guy, I'm like, dude, Kenny, I don't care. I don't care what you're getting out of that. Find somebody else. Go ask Tommy T or Brooks or one of these guys if they want to freeze their fat. I will not be freezing my fat. He laughed. Like, I know, Krug. It was a tough one. It was a tough pull. It was a tough pull. I'm like,
that's a good one.
It's going to be a very tough.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, back in my old radio days before I moved to the Bay Area, I was working in Fresno, and we did all kinds of stuff. I had no choice. Usually, I was making $26,000 a year, and if they said on Thursdays you are broadcasting from North India Bar and Grill, and you'll be paid in gift certificates to North India Bar and Grill, that's what I did. That was a real place. That was a real remote. Let me tell you, Thursdays at 3:15 at North India Bar and Grill were not popping. This one person at the bar looking at you going, why is this person here?
What are you doing here? What are you doing
here? If you've worked in local radio, like small, not major city local radio, but smaller city local, you can basically, you found the depths of your shame. Like you, there
yeah, exactly. This is Larry Krueger I'm here for Marlboro Red,
it was pool halls.
You'll love it. You'll warm up your mouth. You're going to love it. You'll be smoking these twice a day.
And it's like, Larry sold his soul. It's like, yeah, I didn't get paid for that. Just for the record, the station made me do it,
I think maybe the worst one might've been Pajamagram. Guys, she's going to like it. And you're going to love it when you see her in those sexy PJs. And oh my God.
I would say that you probably,
one time Tolbert gave me a lot of crap because I did a commercial for Starbucks salted caramel coffee. And I'm like, the read was like, if you know me, I can't do anything in the morning without my salted caramel coffee. And everybody who actually knew me was like, Krug, you hate coffee. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, I heard your commercial. That one in River Islands. I'm born and raised in San Francisco, but now I'm advocating that you move to Lathrop.
Oh, that's the planned community? Is that what that is? Like
you could walk on the banks of the mighty San Joaquin. It's like, what?
Okay. That's
I all my buddies from high school, Krug, I could have swore I heard you pimping Lathrop the other day.
That's like some people will remember, if not Google him, Michael Olowokandi was once the first pick of the
Candyman
NBA draft out of the
UOP.
University of Pacific. Yeah.
That's right.
The story was that they told him Pacific was on the Pacific. And when he showed up sight unseen, he said, where's the ocean? They're like, oh, well, about that. No,
thought he was going to Pepperdine. Instead, he's at UOP.
That's right.
Stockton drive-bys.
Yeah. When it comes to the podcast, I say no to a lot of stuff. I did one where I did the read and they were like, the client doesn't feel like you're really into it. And I'm like, yeah, right. I was just, yeah, that's correct. I'm not into it. I'm like, all right, well, we'd like to cancel it. Great.
I got in trouble. When I was doing the show with Ratty, and talk about that. We had like a 12 share. It was like 2012. The Giants had just won the World Series for the second time in 2 years.
I would have thought you guys were doing more than a 12.
It was like a 12 share. It was like a 13. It was like literally, it was a monster share. Now I bet you, KMBR is probably doing like a 2 share. That we were getting doing a 12 share. Anyway, listen to me now. I'm bragging, but it was a different time, and the Giants were hot, and they were really going. And I had to do a thing where I judged a barbecue eating contest. And
barbecue eating contest or a barbecue
cooking contest.
Okay.
And I was one of the judges. It was out in Clayton, and it was a big buy, right? And Guy, all I'll say is, don't ever do that. I mean, think about it logically. I didn't think about it logically. When someone pitched it to me, I was like, you know what? Hell yeah, barbecue. I mean, I like barbecue. Barbecue ribs, barbecue chicken, barbecue burgers. What the heck? I sit out in Clayton. I have a couple bites of barbecue, and whatever. I'm done after a couple hours, and I'm making some money. It's a no-brainer, right? Right? He's like, oh, go for it. You'll love it. So I go to Clayton. Well, what I realized was I had to there was going to be 16 different barbecue chicken thighs, and I had to take at least a bite of one of each. 16 different ribs. I had to take a bite of each. Well, think about it. Everybody's got their own rib recipe. Some people are using allspice. Some people are using this spice, that spice. Well, when you spice your food, you probably put 3 or 4 spices on it. If you have a bite of 16 different barbecue chicken things, you're mixing all kinds of spices. I never felt worse in my life. I mean, I was there on a Saturday morning. By Saturday afternoon, I'm doubled over. By Saturday night, I thought I was going to die. I'm just sitting there going, oh my God.
I love Saturday morning.
16 different bites of barbecue chicken with every different spice, and who knows the chicken, and who knows. I felt like hell. So the Monday morning comes in, Ratty's like, hey, how was the barbecue thing? I'm like, yeah, it was all right. He's like, tell me about it. I'm like, really? You want me to tell you about it? I go, actually, it made me sick to my stomach, man. I could not. I was paralyzed the rest of Saturday. I just felt so bad. I don't think I've ever felt that bad in my life. And all of a sudden the sponsor called up and was pissed, really pissed. Tell Krueger that, he's uninvited next time, and we don't even want to pay him this time. I mean, he badmouthed us. I'm like, I was just being honest. Gary, let's live on the air. Hey, we'll live on the air. Hey. So I told him the truth, and it was the sponsor didn't want to hear that. So
yeah. Well, when you tune in for late night, I guess Larry and Guy collab, you get 15 minutes of radio talk.
15 minutes of radio talk. Sorry about that. All right,
it's fun sometimes.
Let's get into it a little bit because the minicamp was here. They were on the field earlier this week on Tuesday, and then we got a chance to sit down with the coaches on Wednesday and talk. And so Tuesday, a bunch of guys are there, including Deebo and Bosa, and Kittle was there, and Civies. There was no Ayuk, there was no Juwan Jennings. There was a bunch of guys rehabbing, Drake Jackson and Talanoa Fonga, who were working out on the side or in the shed there next to the practice field. Had a chance to watch the players that were out there. Purdy looked good, but there was, as I said, no Jennings, no Ayuk, and so that was that. And then on Wednesday, we get a chance to talk to the coaches, and Bobby T, the running back coach, was asked about Christian not being at the minicamp. And he's like, that's the business side of things. I don't want to get into that stuff. And so immediately it went from, it's no big deal that Christian's not showing up to a voluntary OTA. And I think he's getting married in the next few weeks or whatever. Yep. So, and all of a sudden it goes from not a big deal to, well, is it a big deal? I mean, he didn't show, he showed up to the voluntary minicamp, I believe last year. He looked like the best player on the field at the mandatory minicamp. He is getting married soon. And then I'm looking at his salary. He's the highest paid running back in the league. So, I mean, is he, I know there's no more guaranteed money left on his deal, but then on the coaching conversation day, Bobby T, a veteran running back coach, was asked about where Christian was. And he's like, that's the business side, and I don't get into that stuff. So, and I don't want to get into that stuff. So then immediately everybody started speculating, Christian McCaffrey coming off his career year. Is he unhappy about his contract? Does he want a new contract? Is he, he's got zero guaranteed money left on his deal. If he gets hurt at any point, I guess seriously, the Niners could, I guess, walk away. They can cut him at any point. They're not going to. He's one of their best players. But it makes me wonder. So what do you think? I mean, I don't think there's like, if you said to me, do you think Christian not being there you think it's a story or not a story? I'd probably lean more to not a story than a story. But what do you think?
Well, Kyle's answer was a little odd also when Kyle was asked about it. Kyle just said, I don't know.
We'll see when it's mandatory, right?
He just said like, oh, a lot of guys aren't here, which is like, fundamentally, it is a normal answer. Maybe there had been no text messages and he didn't know, and like it's almost, for a coach in his position, it's probably better not to check it on guys, because then you can just plead ignorance and you're telling the truth, and different people are doing different things. And it is the off season of the wedding for Olivia Culpo and Christian McCaffrey, so could simply be that. Even if it's not that, like, even if it is about business, I don't think it's really a story. Like the chance.
Do you think he wants a new deal?
I'm sure he wants a new deal. He's going to be 29 years old, 28 years old soon. Then he'll be next year. The last year of his deal pays him about the same, slightly more. He'll be 29 years old, and then he'll be a free agent at 30. This guy looks invincible right now, but he's also approaching the age where running backs who once looked invincible aren't invincible anymore. So I'm sure he wants. I mean, yeah, of course he would want a new deal. His agent probably wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't trying to get a new contract out of the 49ers right now. But the possibility that it becomes a thing, I think, has to be moderately low. His level of importance is extremely high. It wouldn't shock me, Larry, if they extend Ayuk, if they somehow rework Christian's deal and add some guaranteed money perhaps to it and move some things around. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Like, if you told me that one day we wake up and Christian McCaffrey has a reworked contract, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But the idea that he's not here and it's some sort of negotiating tactic, I mean, missing voluntary OTAs is no tactic. It's just a thing sometimes people do.
Right. And there were other people that weren't there, as Shanahan pointed out.
Have we gotten a Jacob Cowing clarification?
He was not on the field on Tuesday.
I didn't. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't see him. But it's funny, though, because when I talked to when I asked Purdy about him, he's obviously repped it on the field with him.
Yeah. Yep.
And was like, he was very glowing. When I talked to Clay Kubiak, he called him a great football player. Now that opened my eyes. NFL coaches throw around compliments to rookies in the springtime before their first training camp, like manhole covers. They never, hardly ever. I mean, if somebody's saying something real positive about a rookie before training camp, it's like, whoa, well, that's an eye opener. And for Clay Kubiak, and we were talking kind of in the context of, I said, I think this guy's much more than a track guy. I think this guy's a real football player. He's 3,000-yard seasons in a row. He had an incredible last couple games against ASU and in the bowl game against Oklahoma. He's not just a 4.3 speedster. He's a real football player and a real good one. And he went on to say he thinks he's a great football player. That was eye-opening to me.
That's interesting. I would also say, how many times has Clay Kubiak had the mic in his face?
Not often. I was drilling him.
A less experienced interviewee sometimes can use words that are loaded and they don't mean it.
Right.
And really anybody that makes it to this point is a great football player in many respects. But I think it's interesting. And I think the second thing I put, maybe I put some, I didn't see it. I'd have to watch Clay say it and how he said it. The first thing you said, the question you asked Brock, I definitely put some stock in. I watched Brock say it. I went, oh, that's interesting. Right.
Yeah. He even said, man, this guy can take the top off. And he basically kind of said, hey, man, we got the vertical game going now.
Yeah. Which, as we know, is a basically a big fat zero for this team for several years now. Like the true vertical game. Somebody got on me the other day because I said they don't hit the deep ball. They said, no, actually Brock's deep ball percentage, blah, blah, blah. I know. I'm talking about over the top go balls. They do not hit. They tried to hit it in practice. They hit none. They hit none of them. They weren't even close, Larry. They were not even close. But I do think I'll be interested to see the early read for me, as you know, on this draft class was that it might make up for the lack of just presence that they've had out of their recent drafts, in that it might be maybe it's a high floor. We don't know yet where the ceiling is, right? When you watch Ricky Pearsall practice, you don't go, oh, that's a really high ceiling player. But you do say that guy probably belongs on the field and I think can help this team this year. And I think Cowing's going to be like that. I think that Garendo, maybe he'll be a high ceiling guy, but he's definitely I see a lot of high floors here. You know, how great a class is ultimately determined by how many, like, do you have a Fred Warner? Do you have a George Kittle? Do you have like a high ceiling guy?
Do you have
in the class
these guys Pro Bowlers?
Right. So,
you know,
I mean, ideally for them, like maybe there'll be a guy like that in this class, but it does feel like this group, and I'm jumping around because it was just so exciting to see guys. You didn't get a chance to weigh in on McCaffrey, but I do think just this collection, there should be some contributors out of this collection of guys, immediate contributors.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, I'm kind of joking now, but what if I'm like making a big deal about Clay Kubiak saying that Jacob Cowing's a great player, and then he's like, "Hey, Krug, great conversation. You're really do a great job, and
that's
hope you have a great year this year, and it's great talking to you."
That's the famous.
And all of a sudden, I realized, you know what? He just uses "great" a lot.
It's the Seinfeld episode where Elaine meets a doctor and he says something like, "Oh, you're breathtaking." And then there's a baby that's very ugly, and the doctor also calls the ugly baby breathtaking. I think those are the details of it, but yeah, exactly. Well, I always laugh. Every producer I've worked, and not everyone, but 9 out of 10 producers you work with, no matter how great or how shitty the show you just did afterwards, be like, "Great stuff, guys. Great stuff." It's like,
yeah, that was not
great stuff.
Yes. Seriously.
So
put a sock in it. Yeah.
Anyway. Did you have something to say on McCaffrey? Because I want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's interesting. One, you know, maybe it's because Brock's on the verge of becoming a $50 million player. Maybe it's because Ayuk's going to get broken off and Jennings is going to get broken off, and you know, maybe before all these things become official, that CMC's agent just, you know, wants to be, hey, you know what? When everybody was on the field together, my guy was an MVP candidate. So no offense to Juwan or Brandon or Brock, but how about you take care of your MVP candidate, you know? And so maybe there's something to that. Maybe that, the 49ers offensive stars have been, have all kind of sacrificed a little for the greater good. And now when it's time to get paid, now nobody really wants to sacrifice for the greater good and everybody kind of wants to get theirs. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that the Niners did draft 2 new wide receivers, and maybe the handwriting is on the wall that they're going to become more of a pass-oriented offense, and maybe less of a run-oriented offense.
He caught 83 balls last year.
Right.
Did he have 83 targets? Did he catch 83
but
balls?
Well, he caught a bunch, but I mean, what if all of a sudden Pearsall's your
number.
underneath guy? And then I guess the other question I was going to ask you is, if indeed he wants more money in a new deal, do you give it to him? Should the 49ers give in to Christian, or should they say, no, you know what? We'll pay you when we're ready to pay you, and we're going to try to keep our financial flexibility in order. I mean, this is a very difficult, it's hard to build a team from nothing. That's what they were charged with when they took over in 2017. But now here we are, 2024. It's hard to keep a thing together, and not have bad feelings and not have maybe some jealousy. Now Parag, if he's still handling the cap situation, is going to have to work his magic. And then I kind of wonder, did it have anything to do with the fact that the Niners passed on Luke McCaffrey? Does it have anything to do with the fact that the Niners added Isaac Garendo and Corey Schrader in the draft, and maybe are looking at life beyond beyond Juice or beyond CMC at some point. So I don't know. I'm not sure. There are other factors beyond, Jennings and Ayuk and Purdy. It's like there could be several things that could be going on here. What do you think? Are any of those? One, what do you think about the first question, which is if you're the Niners, you give in and give them a new deal, or you say no, we're going to maintain our financial flexibility and we'll kick that can down the road.
83 targets, 67 receptions. So I said that wrong the other day. So let's get that right.
You always have to have more targets and receptions. Just remember that. The bigger number is always going to be the targets.
Until somebody has the same number.
That's a hell of a receiver. He was targeted 100 times. He caught 100 balls.
Yeah, Juice was close. 14 catches on 17 targets. I would consider paying him. Yeah, because part of it is I think Parag probably has a way to pay him and have it benefit the Niners in some way. Mm-hmm. You can reasonably see him on the team for 2 more years, which is what his contract is anyway. I think you could reasonably see him on the team for 3 years, but 3 years is a long time to project a running back. So no, I don't want to pay him. I mean, he's making $12 million. Like you said, that's good running back money. I don't want to. I just highly doubt that this becomes contentious in any way. And I don't, and even if the other thing I want to add, Larry, is even if this is business related, and one of your points there, you said, is he mad about Luke McCaffrey? I doubt it, but maybe if Luke were on the team, maybe Christian would be here. Maybe. I mean, the wedding is happening, so he's got some, he's got some responsibilities. But even if it is business related, I would stop short, and I think we should stop short of using it as an indication that the 49ers are fraying, that the business of football is disrupting this team. They've had things like this constantly. They've always had something like this. Every year they do. So they're involved in Bosa or Deebo. Trent Williams almost left as a free agent. And it has not next to zero effect on the team, but zero effect on the team. There are some teams that can't get away with it, that can't handle it in a way that separates the business from the football. And, it does get in the way of trying to win games. There's no evidence in the 49ers' recent history that any of this stuff actually affects their locker room and their football. Deebo was a trade target around the draft. He didn't look like a guy moping around when we watched him on Tuesday. I thought he practiced pretty good. So, there's a few levels there, but I think it's easy when, especially if it's Ayuk plus McCaffrey, for people to look at that and wonder. And I think we should err on the side of it doesn't disrupt their team, because it never actually disrupts their team.
No, I mean, they've been able to, at this point, keep the business and the locker room in a healthy spot. And I think that's partly because they do draft well. And they do have a lot of young players. They haven't this year, they signed a bunch of free agents, but most years they don't sign a bunch of free agents. So you don't have a bunch of different locker room cultures kind of blending all into one. Most of the guys on this team were drafted, developed, and came up through the Niners system. So that's all they know, right? So they're like, when it's not like, hey, run through this wall. Well, I don't know. In Cleveland, they told us to run around the wall. In Philly, we skipped this drill altogether. It's like the Niners have so many in-house guys that they drafted that I think their culture is very much their culture. And though this year they bring in Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins, and some guys, Devondre Campbell. They mixed it up this year, and they brought in some veterans. We'll see what the impact of that is.
What's your pay McCaffrey answer?
I'd say no. I say no. I'm not paying him right now. I'll let it ride. Not that I want to upset him, but he's a 29-year-old running back who's coming off a high usage year. I'm playing my cards close to the vest. I mean, I've got JP Mason. I believe in JP Mason. I've got Mitchell. I kind of like
You do or
Mitchell.
they do?
I do. I think Mason's got a future. I think Mason's a big time player. He just hasn't gotten any run. And I kind of like Cody Schrader a little bit. And I kind of like Garendo's athleticism. So, I mean, they've got Purdy to pay and other guys in line. And it's not that I would say to McCaffrey, go screw yourself, but I would just say, hey, can we table that for, it's like, we'll take care of you, but let's see how the season plays out. I'd want to see the season play out. I'm already going to lose flexibility by having to pay Brock Purdy $50 million. And I'm going to lose flexibility if I get Ayuk signed, even though it may create some cap room up front. Maybe I could do something, as you referenced there. If you've saved $10-12 million on the cap, maybe you could throw some more money to CMC. But I especially at running back, I don't want to get into big money he's the highest paid running back in football. Do I think you're the best? We're paying you to be the best. You got the highest number in the game. So I would say be happy with that. And then we'll see where it goes at the end of the year. I'd put it off and try to maintain I'd prioritize maintaining financial flexibility at this juncture over paying my 29-year-old running back, who is probably closer to the end than he is to the beginning, to be completely honest.
I agree with you, but just so he turns 20, he will be his birthday's in June. So every season it's just he's that age for the season. This is his age 28 season. He'll be 20.
So he'll be 28. Yeah. So like if I'm going to pay him going in the spring, I'm paying him going forward at 29. It's like I don't want to pay him right now. I mean, I'm already paying him right now. If he was making $7 million, then you know what? I don't know that it's right to have the best back in the game making $7 million. He's making 14. I think is the average of his contract is 14.1. That's if you can look it up, but that's the highest in the NFL. So I can't sit there and be like, I feel terrible. You're the highest paid running back in football on a team that runs the ball less than any team in the game almost. So I'm not in a rush in that situation, and I'm loaded with backs. And we'll see. You had almost 400 touches. This is part of where his like approach of I want to get every carry, I want to get every touch. This works against you, I think, because then you get mileage.
Well, somebody should take him out of the game. The coach doesn't have to give him every touch. Elijah Mitchell,
he makes his own calls though. He takes himself out and puts himself in.
Okay.
That sounds like it.
Because he's allowed to.
Yeah, he's allowed to. I think he basically tells Bobby T when he's going to play and when he's not going to play. I don't think it's the opposite.
I've yet to see Kyle Shanahan mad because 23 is in the game. Get 23 out of the game.
Well, I asked Shanahan in week 3. I'm like, hey, your guy's on pace for like 400 touches. Is that pace sustainable? And he said, hey, he's a great back. We like to hand it to him and we like to throw it to him. I'm like, all right, fine. But 400 touches is hard to replicate and it may shorten his career.
I think one of the interesting, and maybe, one of the things that hasn't been discussed, there's been a lot of talk about the eventual move to an 18-game schedule. And to me, the 18-game schedule will really help teams hide players that they like because it's going to be one less preseason game. It's hard to get through
at the cut down guys that
it's hard to get through 3 preseason games when you have this many running backs that you kind of like, but don't play. Like Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey those guys aren't getting snaps in 3 preseason games of any significance. So like Isaac Garendo's going to get carries. JP Mason's going to get carries. Schrader's going to get carries. I thought, to me, one of the headlines, actually, the reaction video I did after Tuesday's practice, I had 8 reactions. The first one was the running backs. That doesn't mean it was the most significant, But that was just the thing I was most excited to talk about. I thought Isaac Guerrero looked awesome on Tuesday. Just interesting, really interesting.
Big and strong and explosive.
The other guy, and I know I'm jumping around, but
Schrader?
No, your boy, Mason Pline. I didn't realize Mason Pline.
He's good.
Well, first of all, the one thing you could see on tape with him, and I texted the video before the draft or right after the draft to my buddy Evan Moore, who's been on my show and played tight end in the NFL. It's just a really sharp guy.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think? Like, just watch 3 minutes of this guy. He's like, well, the first thing that's clear is he moves really well. So that was clear. The thing that I didn't realize about Pline until I saw him on Tuesday was that he is NFL ready in terms of like his body, in terms of he's thick. He's not skinny. I thought he was a little skinny on film. He's not as cut as Eric Saubert, and Eric Saubert's a big dude, but he's about as big as Saubert is. You know,
he's got upper body development.
He's not as like Saubert is like a rock. Pline will get there, but he looked more NFL ready from a physical standpoint than I expected to. And I watched him doing a lot of the special teams kind of like coverage drills, and he moves really well. So I thought he looked really promising.
They got something there. They got something in Pline. There's no doubt. Everybody, the coach thing, I love the coach day because they don't make the coaches available more than like twice a year, right? So this is like one of the times we get a chance to talk to the coaches. And so the offensive coaches go first, and that's the defensive coaches go first and the offensive coaches. And then, of course, the offensive coaches, everybody wanted to talk to Brandon Staley. Not to Brandon Staley, to Brian Greasy. Brian Greasy had tons and tons of people around him. Bobby T to a lesser extent. Forster wasn't there, so for whatever reason he skipped out. So Brian Fleury, as the tight end coach, had nobody there, and so I'm going to walk up. I'll get a one-on-one now with Fleury. So I start talking to Fleury, and we start talking about Cam Latu and this and that. And I said to him, and I know Brian a little bit from talking to him the last year, and we got a good little rap. So I said to him, I said, man, you guys got my guy Mason Pline. I really loved Mason Pline in the pre-draft, and I go, let me tell you my reasoning. Somebody told me the guy was good. I YouTubed him. I found nothing but Ferris State basketball highlights, but I'm watching this guy tomahawk reverse jam, and he's got an above the rim game. And I'm thinking to myself, after I watched the basketball highlights, Brian, I'm like, this guy's good enough athlete to play in the NFL. I don't care what his 3-cone is or this or that. I mean, when you watch a guy reverse jam on the break, if you can get up and reverse jam in traffic in a college basketball game, you're athletic enough. You're athletic enough. Then you mix in the 6'8", the 10.5-inch hands, and the fact that he's a mechanical engineering major. And I said, man, Brian, when I read that report, I was like, I'm all in, man. I love this kid. And you know what? First thing he says to me, he goes, I saw the same things you saw. And he's like, I'll say this about Pline. He's like, he's got a lot to learn, but he's improving at a ridiculously fast rate.
Which makes sense, right? Because he spent, 4 years playing basketball, not playing football. So he's got these big jumps to make.
Right. And the fact that he's really, really smart.
Yeah.
So when you're really, really smart, and then the other thing he said is, you know what? With the undrafted free agents, it's really hard to get an undrafted free agent tight end to sign here because they know that we've got Kittle, and they know that we use Juice sometimes at tight end, and they know that we go 3 wides because of our wide receiver depth, and so it's hard to get an undrafted college free agent tight end to sign with us. But he's like, Pline wanted us and we wanted him. So
I think that I know you saw the interview I did with his coach, his college coach, and he thought it was a great fit. I think for a guy with some vision, like a guy who might have a shot to play, I actually think it's a great spot because the others have been looking for tight end 2,
right,
for a long time. So you don't get to be tight end 1 right away, but you get to be tight end 2. Like, that's a pretty good place to be. So Yeah, I'm optimistic about him. I'm optimistic about him.
Yeah. He looked good. And I was told by Fleury that Cam Latu, that he's still kind of rehabbing and that he's mentally in a really good spot, that he did really good job in the offseason of kind of using his redshirt year to improve. And I just said to Brian, I said, Brian, what is he though? I mean, tell me what he is, because balls ricocheted off him last summer. I'm like, is he a receiver? Is he a blocker? What's the strength of Latu? Because we just didn't get a good enough look at him. I know he didn't play tons at Bama. And he's like, you know what? That's the beauty of this kid. He's like, he can be both. He's like, he can be a really strong inline blocker in the run game, and he can be flexed out and utilized as a second receiver, and can even get down the field. So he really had a lot of good things to say about Latu.
I mean, I'm sure it was a very difficult year for him last year, not just getting hurt, but like having kind of, to our eyes at least, not a great camp before he got hurt. You don't want to get hurt at any time, but you certainly don't want to get hurt when it's clear that you have some catching up to do. So I'm sure it was a challenging offseason for him. And he did not catch the ball well last year, and we got a chance to see him. But they drafted him knowing it was probably not going to be an immediate impact player, and that he required some development anyway. So, the other thing that we didn't get to see a lot of the special teams tactics. I heard Mike McDonald, the Seahawks coach, and somebody asked him, like, what's it going to be like? He's like, your guess is as good as mine. Like, I don't know. We're going to find out. And Kyle said the same thing. Like, none of these coaches really have any idea, which will make it interesting, because I'm curious if they will try a lot of different things and specifically different players to return. Are your traditional punt returners going to make the most sense? Is a running back going to make sense? When you go back and watch some of those XFL returns, they're kind of running back style runs, because there's not really any separation. There's not big gaps. There's not, like on a traditional kicker punt return, a bunch of different players at a bunch of different levels. It's everybody kind of lined up. It looks like the movies where you watch an old battle before, like people hid behind trees and they just like stood in lines and marched towards each other. That's what this new kickoff looks like. And I think running backs might actually, I think Elijah Mitchell would be an interesting returner with the new kickoff rule, but
because he can make guys miss and he's shifty.
Yeah, I think running back skills will turn out to be more important than straight line kind of returner speed skills. But I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, the Niners have every possible type of returner that there is in camp, right? They got Trent Taylor.
Cowing now.
They got Cowing. They got the little shifty guy. They got Garendo, who's a big tackle-breaking speedster. They've got Juice, who's the reliable fullback. They've got Trent Taylor, who's not going to give you big returns, but he's maybe the most reliable. And
they have Pearsall.
They've got stars like Ayuk and Deebo who have dynamic capability.
They had Danny Gray catching punts the other day.
Danny Gray's explosive as all get out. I mean, they got Ronnie Bell. They've got Chris Conley. I mean, they just got a bunch of guys, and they're going to have lots of things to choose from. And it's funny. Somebody asked the question, and the way they posed it, they're like, I think it was Jake Hutchinson to Shanahan. He's like, do you take a lot of interest in the new return rules? And the way he phrased that, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna say, of course I do. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, we take a lot of interest in that. It's like the last thing you want to say after you didn't know the rules in overtime is like, we're not that interested in these new rules. I think you could ask Kyle Shanahan about any rule change for the next 6 months, and he's going to be like, we've done a deep dive. We've looked at it with a fine-tooth comb. We are studying it intricately, looking for advantages. You know what I mean? He's never going to say, not really. We're not all that into it. We'll just see. We'll see how it goes. It's like not after that Super Bowl, not after that overtime.
He was in a good mood on Tuesday too.
He was. Tanner Mordecai. Okay, I want to talk about Tanner Mordecai. I know there's people that just can't stand when I talk Tanner Mordecai.
No one's sure why yet. I think that's
why I'm talking.
Why are we allocating time?
Why are we allocating Tanner Mordecai time? I asked Clay Kubiak about Mordecai, And as soon as I asked him about him, he lit up. And he's like, Brian Greasy scouted him. I said, tell me a little bit about him. What do you think? What stands out? And he's like, oh, he's really a great competitor. Now, that is one of those traits that I love to hear, because that's kind of an all-encompassing thing. If you're a great competitor, you're going to improve because you're competitive. You're going to spend time because you're competitive. You're going to, that competitor is a great compliment. But yeah, Kubiak said, the kid can make all the throws. He's very smart. He's very athletic, and he's a great competitor. And he's improved already, or he says he's impressed with how he's learning the offense. And then he just said he's a good football player. Then I had a chance to talk to Greasy. And since he had mentioned that Greasy scouted him, and we know that Greasy scouted Brock, I asked Greasy about him. Tell me about Tanner Mordecai. And he's like, first thing he says, it's early, which is kind of like saying, whatever I'm going to say next, don't overinflate it. It's early, take it for what it's worth, kind of a thing. But he said he's got a lot of ability. And then he immediately said, I had a great conversation with Luke Fickell, his coach at Wisconsin, about Mordecai. And Fickell told me that if there was one player on his Wisconsin roster that he would stand on the table for, it's Tanner Mordecai. He said the guys loved him. He was an incredible competitor. And even Greasy admitted, hey, the kid's head is swimming mentally right now because there's so many factors. But he said, I'm excited to see what Tanner can do in training camp. He said, that he really played well last year, and that the players really like playing with him. And, he said you could see that athleticism on tape. So that's all I'll say about Tanner Mordecai. But Greasy says, that Luke Fickell says that the one guy that he would have pounded the table or stood on the table arguing for is Tanner Mordecai. That is an eye-opener to me. That's an eye-opener because Wisconsin had some good players. They had Braylon Allen. They had some good. Didn't they have Tanner Bortolini or whatever, the center, and they had some good players. I mean, Wisconsin's got players in the draft every year. The fact that the head coach was that fired up about a guy who, it wasn't like he recruited the kid out of high school and he's friends with his parents. The guy played 1 year at Wisconsin, but he really finished strong. So I was encouraged by that, and I'm eager to see. It makes me feel good that when I see something in somebody, and then I ask these coaches, when I get the sense that they see what I see, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, okay,
yeah,
you know what? Maybe I haven't lost a fastball. Maybe I do know a little something about what I'm watching.
It would be foolish to write off the fourth quarterback,
especially on an organization that just found Brock Purdy.
around the Niners. So it would be foolish of me to mock you for being so obsessed about Tanner Mordecai, because I don't want to be on some this clip in 2 years. It's like, oh God, you guys thought Brock was good. Boy, this Tanner Mordecai guy.
What if Tanner Mordecai becomes better than Brock?
I heard.
What if it's like, Brock was pretty good, but that Mordecai guy really was great.
You just kept the seat warm.
Wouldn't that be something? If the Niners,
I'll say this,
if the Niners hit on Tanner Mordecai and he's good, I kind of think that Brian Greasy's stock as a quarterback, I don't want to say whisperer, but at least a quarterback identifier. I mean, this is the hardest position in the NFL. First of all, it's the most important position on the team. Second of all, it's one of the hardest positions to scout. I mean, look at the Trey Lance draft. Look at those guys. Now look at the failure record of the first round quarterbacks in the last 25 years. If you actually can identify day 3 undrafted free agents that can come in and play good NFL football at the quarterback position, that might be, your ticket to riches in the NFL. I mean, I'd pay Brian Greasy a bonus just for that skill alone. I don't care if he develops the quarterbacks after that. I mean, if you can identify day 3 and after the draft quarterbacks that can play in the NFL, my God, that's worth gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of time before Greasy is really a head coach candidate if the Niners continue to have success. If Purdy continues to have success, there's no question about that. Yeah, there's no question about it. I think the scouts would tell you, though, yes, it's hard to draft quarterbacks. None of us had Zach Wilson as the second best player in the draft or Trey Lance as the third best player in the draft. But there's just an inflation when it comes to the GM actually drafting the position. Yeah. The scouts, everybody knew, the scouts knew how risky those picks were, right?
No doubt. The other interesting quote that I got to throw to you, we were talking to Brandon Staley. Seems like a nice guy. He says he reads books to try to learn and become a better coach. And somehow somebody asked him about Brock, and he said, I really know Matt Campbell really well, the head coach at Iowa State, Brock's former head coach. And his first comment that he says, he's like, I really like Matt Campbell. We're good friends. And then he immediately rips his program of this guy that he claims that he loves. He's like, not a lot of pros come out of there. I'll tell you that,
Well, that's a compliment to Matt Campbell. It
is, but it also is kind of a rip on his recruiting, I guess. But then he said, he talked about Purdy for a second, and he said Brock Purdy lifts the entire team. He's a gym rat who lifts up the team by how he prepares for games and the level of effort and intensity that he goes about his preparation sets the tone for the entire team. I thought that was an interesting kind of appraisal of Purdy from afar, from a guy who, who's a defensive guy, and he was a very well developed thought he had on Purdy, and I would agree. I think there's a lot of times there on Thursdays where we're supposed to interview Purdy and we're waiting for like a half hour. People are like getting kind of frustrated, like, where the hell's Purdy? And it's like, you know what? This guy's doing meetings and he's trying to figure out how to win on Sunday, and he's really dedicated. So yeah, sometimes those meetings last a long time and we don't get to talk to him till 4:30, 5:00 or something like that. And then the rest of us are staying in 680 traffic. But you know what? I'd rather wait in traffic on Thursday night than have a quarterback be in there at 3:15 who can't play it.
They get home early to review shitty football. Exactly. I like that. Playing the position is clearly one of the hardest things to do on earth at a high level, right? But that comment from Brandon Staley is interesting because being a leader in any organization filled with people that are also have leadership qualities, probably think of themselves as leaders and can smell bullshit a mile away, is also a really unique skill. I was watching Jim Tressel has a podcast.
The sweater vest.
Yeah, it's called It's All About the Team. And he had Ryan Day, the coach of Ohio State, on. And, they're just talking about team building. And Ryan Day was an NFL assistant. I think, was he with Chip with the 49ers? I think he might have been. He was with Chip in the NFL. I think
he was.
Yeah. So that's right. He was I think he was the Niners quarterbacks coach. And he was just talking about how, the difference between, they were both talking about this, the difference between the NFL and college, one of them, is that the NFL players have been coached a lot more than college players have been coached. They've seen a lot of coaching. They are much more in tune with this guy can't help me or this guy can't help me. And the same applies to, quarterbacks. The guys that play with a quarterback by the time they've gotten in the NFL have played with a lot of quarterbacks. And quarterbacks not all, but mostly kind of want to be the leader. Like, that's part of the position. It's like, you're the dude. The meeting don't start till you walk in, right? And that's a lot of pressure. So I don't know, from Brandon Staley, does he really know? Was it just lip service? I don't know. But whether Brandon Staley said it or nobody said it, the evidence has kind of been here now. How great of a player is Brock going to be? I don't know. But the evidence is pretty much in on, can Brock handle himself as a leader at the highest level? The answer to that question is yes. And that's, maybe he doesn't get enough credit. Not that he should be getting credit, but that's a pretty tough hurdle to jump. It's not just the performance hurdle. It's the leadership hurdle. We saw it with Trey. Like, it's a tough team to just walk into and get to take over, be one of the leaders. And Purdy's done that. And I think watching him talk.
And he did it incredibly fast.
He did it very quickly. But I thought watching it, he looked more comfortable. He sounded more just sure. I think we're going to see him come out of his shell a little bit, just from like a press conference. Not that most fans care, but you do get some good insight from a guy when he stands at the mic and talks. And I think we're seeing him evolve a little. I think we've seen it. We saw it the other day. I think we're getting a little more confident, a little more comfortable. And part of it is he hasn't spent this whole offseason trying to learn to throw again. So as someone who just had to learn to talk again is learning, the work in progress. It sucks. Takes you out of your zone. And he looks to me like he's in a pretty good spot right now, just with everything going on.
He's pretty confident. He's a pretty confident guy. He said something to me a couple weeks ago at one of the pressers when I said, how would you evaluate how you played in the Super Bowl? Right. And he's like, on one hand, he's, typical Brock. He doesn't defer. He doesn't point the finger at anybody. Zach Wilson, pay attention. He doesn't point the finger at anybody. He owns it. I needed to be better. But then he mixes in one line that tells you this kid's something else. And the line was, when I get in this game again, I'm going to play better. It wasn't like, hey, man, if things are lucky, if somehow I'm fortunate enough to get back to that point, he expects to be in the Super Bowl again. That is,
but most young guys do, right? That's what they always say. It's like, I didn't know how lucky I was to play in that game that early. I thought we were going to be in this game every year.
Ask Marino in 1985 about that.
Fred Warner said it too.
Yeah.
Fred Warner said that too.
But I do like hearing that, because there isn't all a lot of, well, if we're lucky enough, things work right. He's like, when I'm in that game again, I'm going to play better. It's like, not like, hey, and he said it with such confidence, like, I'm going to be in that game again. He's got at his core a real belief in himself. Couple things I want to hit before we jet. I haven't asked you, other than you kind of volunteered. You were there and saw all the workout on all the field time that the media was allowed to see. You were there for all of it. Who stood out to you? Who when you were watching practice, what did you like? I mean, you mentioned Garendo, but is there anybody else that you could mention that you really were impressed by?
Well, and the other thing I'd add on Garendo is they weren't wearing pads. So a running back, when there's no pads, I have no idea if he can run the ball. Right.
I don't even evaluate running backs in practice. To me, it's, you got to wait till the preseason.
Well, to me, the reason I just want to the reason I bring him up is, I thought he caught a couple balls that were not just that he had to make an athletic move on, catch the ball, turn up field. Even though you're not getting hit, bodies around you can be distracting. Danny Gray had a ball over the middle that he did not catch. Bodies around him, had to go up high. I also thought that before he didn't catch the ball, Danny Gray had a pretty good practice. As someone who had basically given up on Danny Gray, in that, I came out of that practice, and one of my takeaways was, well, let's see. Maybe Danny's going to be able to put up a fight here with some of these other guys. Let's see. So I go out, I circle guys. Who am I really watching today? Let me make sure that I watch each of these guys, and I will keep an eye on 6. I thought Renardo Green made a nice play at the end of practice on Deebo. That there was initially a flag thrown, then they picked it up. I thought it was a really good play. It's tough to kind of get around Deebo and break up a pass without creating contact, and Deebo is strong with his hands at that point, and Green was able to make the play on him. So I thought that was impressive. Obviously Ricky got a lot of run. Somebody asked the question. That was a good question. I think it's true. The loss of not having Jennings and Ayuk there, and even Cowing the other day, that sucks. But for Ricky Pearsall, it means more reps. And I thought he just looked like I said earlier, kind of like he is a high floor guy. He looked comfortable catching punts on what was a breezy day. Rocky Sin made a nice pass breakup on him, so he didn't catch it. It wasn't a perfect day. Made a nice sliding catch deep over the middle, separated from Ambry Thomas, came back to a ball like 20 yards down the field, made a nice catch. So I just thought he looked like he fit. So those were my specifics. I don't know about you. I didn't spend much time watching the offensive line. I did think just both the offensive line and defensive line groups just looked big. Gross Matos is big. He just fits in. He kind of replaces that Armstead body type. He does. The offensive
line, I thought, not to interrupt you, the offensive line I thought looked way more athletically explosive than the group that I saw practice throughout the year.
Did you watch much of Puni?
I did.
Tell me.
I love the combination of the tenacity and the feet. He's got good tenacity. He's looking to, he likes the contact and he drives the feet. And to me, I thought he looked good. I thought Nugent is a good looking player as far as
you like Nugent.
Center who, undrafted center. Brendel's now got knee tendonitis, and it sounds like Feliciano may play some center. But
did Kyle say tendonitis or arthritis?
There was tendonitis.
Oh, okay.
But I could check that. But yeah, I just think Brendel could get a run for his job. I like, to me, the other guy that still stands out.
That's tough though, Larry. A rookie center.
I know, but Nugent is, went to Stanford, very smart, and then was all Big Ten first team center. And he's got some traits. He's smart. He's broad. He looks like he can handle some power, I think speed guys are going to bother him a little bit, but there aren't that many speed guys in the interior in the NFL. There's a lot of big bodied guys that are strong. So you got to be strong. I like Nugent. And to me, all three of there's four new offensive linemen. Mays is the only one that to me just looks developmental. Pooney looks like a starter. Kingston looks like a starter. Nugent to me looks like a starter. Now, maybe not right away, but those guys look like starters in the NFL to me, just from watching them. But I really like Pooney. I like the upper body strength. I like the way that his attitude is like, hey, I want to bury guys.
Yeah. It was tendonitis. I checked. Which is good. I have the transcript. I wondered why no one else was alarmed by arthritis, but because he didn't say arthritis. He said arthritis, and I looked at him. I'm like, is nobody else alarmed by that? Like, no, okay, no one's alarmed.
Suddenly he's wearing copper bracelets and necklaces and stuff like that. It helps with my arthritis.
It happens at a young age when you play sports.
He's Jake Brendel. We just bought him the clapper. Clap on, clap off.
I had one of those in college. And my buddy AJ got one for the apartment. We had all kinds of in college. We had walkie-talkies. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had walkie-talkies. I did want to say. I said this.
Don't even think about coming in here.
The problem is the battery dies, and you can't leave it on. You realize it's a stupid idea. I thought
who else stood out? You're looking at your notes. What do you got?
I thought I've got several things. I thought Deebo looked good. I thought
wearing
Deebo,
the number one. I thought he looked like, to me, he looked like he was trying to go at 3/4 speed.
Yes, except for when he catches the ball and then he can't help but explode.
Yeah.
And even though he was at 3/4 speed, he still got to the ball and I thought he did things, even though he wasn't sprinting through every route. But if you really watch these guys, not every route is, especially when it's like they do the route with no defense, whatever that drill's called. No one's running up. It's not a full speed. But I thought he was precise. I did think he looked precise. I have more.
Go ahead. Empty the
No. I have more stock in him than I'm not gonna go. I did everything. I don't want people to rehear the same crap I've already done, but
you don't want to rehash old material.
I don't want to rehash old material.
I'll say this: another guy that just every time I watch him, I love him more is Malik Mustafa.
Yeah.
I really like him. I think he's going to be the guy. If you said to me, give me one guy that the Niners acquired this offseason that you think can make a Pro Bowl, I'd go with him.
There's such opportunity for him. I think safety is such an interesting position for the Niners in the preseason because they've drafted two guys that they thought would be starters, but one of them's hurt and one of them, Jair Brown, we'll see, Hufanga being the other. So I think Mustafa really has an opportunity. Somebody, okay, you found it. Lindsey Prala said arthritis. I heard arthritis in that meeting, but I just checked the official transcript and it says tendonitis. It's possible Kyle said arthritis and meant tendonitis and they changed it in the transcript, or maybe Lindsey and I both. It might have been a question I can't remember, but it's not it does happen, right? So
she does a good job too. I don't know, but
does.
I mean, it is tendonitis. But man, arthritis. Jake Brendel getting old. Okay. Is there anybody else that you want to throw out that really look good to you that you noticed? I thought Dobbs looked really, really athletic. I just didn't think of him as quite that good of a mover, but there's no doubt that guy's an athlete. He can move.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can throw. I don't know what kind of quarterback he is, but he can really move. He looks really smooth. He looks really smooth.
Devondre Campbell taller than I realized in person.
I thought it was interesting too when the group came together for the huddle. He stayed out of the huddle. Maybe he just feels like an outsider because he came from Green Bay. It's early in the thing.
Is that what you're supposed to do when you're an outsider?
I don't know. It was weird. It was like, here's a guy that just first practice with the team. They're all huddling up and he's ran over there, but then ran to like 10 feet away from the huddle and wasn't part of it. Probably means nothing. Maybe
he's in the protocol.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe there's issues there. I did like the fact that when I talked to Clay Kubiak, he said that Pearsall, that one of the things they really liked about Pearsall is they liked his toughness and how he can separate pretty much at will. That he's got the ability with footwork and nuance route running.
Did you feel that way watching
separate? I do. I definitely, and I told Kubiak, I said, here, my concern is that it's not that he can't separate, it's that he can't maintain the separation when he starts running down the field. I think
on Tuesday, Larry, did you feel like he was separating at will?
I think I'm not really worried about the practice because it's a practice. I'm just looking at the footwork, and I like the footwork and I like the stop and start. I like the body control. He seems like a guy in a short area that is, my comp is Danny Amendola. I see Danny Amendola. I see a guy that, he can run those little whip routes, and he's just gonna be a really tough guy for any corner that has any real size. It's gonna be really difficult to mirror Pearsall. Now, if you're McDuffie from the Chiefs and you're smaller and you've got unbelievable athleticism, it might be impossible for Pearsall to separate from you. But for like big corners who have a little length to them, I think they're going to have a hard time with this guy. He's got really good body control, and he's got a lot of that fluidity. He's got those head and shoulder fakes.
Yes.
You can see that he's got short area separation written all over him. And that was my question. Can he get off the line? Is he tough? And Kubiak said, they really loved his toughness and his ability to separate. So
he looked the way I expected him to look, which is good. Like I thought he really looked like he belonged.
Two things before we jet.
You just said two things.
I know. Well, I got one last one, and I got one question. One of them is a story that I'm reading online right now. That it says new Steelers wide receiver solution emerging after Juwan Jennings skips OTAs. The Steelers are just the Steelers trading for a Niner wide receiver rumors just refuse to die.
Somebody, where was that published?
This is, who's got this? Steelers Nation. The story is by Anthony something.
Okay.
Halkias?
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
But I mean, what do you think? Do you think there's a Do you think the 49ers are no longer in the we may move a wide receiver deal? Or, I mean, they do have an awful lot of wide receivers. I mean, they just drafted Ronnie Bell. They supposedly like Chris Conley. They've got Trent Taylor. Are they really going to cut every single one of those guys? Because right now it's JJ, Deebo, Ayuk, Pearsall, Cowing. Most teams go with 5 receivers. That might be it. Every other receiver might get cut.
So you're talking about Bell, Gray,
Taylor,
Conley,
Tariq Owens, Trent Taylor. Everybody else is gonna get. And then Ronnie Bell would probably be at the top of that list. Are they really going to cut Ronnie Bell, who's a terrific route runner, has a lot of potential, had a 100-yard day in the preseason when they played
7th
him.
round pick.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what he looks like as far as, moving around this summer.
Yeah.
But,
caught a good pass from Sam Darnold in the preseason last year.
Had 113 yards or something.
You're asking, is Juwan Jennings going to not be on this team this year?
Well, do you think that the Niner wide receiver, rumors to Pittsburgh, is it going to materialize into something or nothing? Is it going to go from it's Ayuk to it's Deebo to it's Jennings? Or do you expect Deebo and Jennings and Ayuk? If you were a betting man, are all 3 of those wide receivers in camp this summer with the Niners? Or do they thin the herd and move one of these guys for whatever, 2025 compensation or a player or something? What's your guess?
Well, if the question is, how do you best win a Super Bowl this year? Then the solution's very easy. You're not getting rid of any of those guys. You're not trading. Juwan may not be on your team in 2025, but this isn't 2025. So what are you getting for him right now that makes it worth giving up a guy who had a shot to be the Super Bowl MVP? You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, he would have been. I mean,
it's like, I'm not here to knock the creative idea. I'm really not. I think it was a good idea from a Steelers standpoint. Like, yeah, you should try that. But just look at everything through the filter of how do you best win a championship this year? And when you look at it through that filter, it makes all of this stuff a lot easier to decide what the Niners should do or not do. And, I think one thing being out at practice Tuesday, you see this. Without Ayuk and Jennings, it's a really deep receiver group until you take away like 1 or 2 of the star receivers. Even if Ayuk was there, but Jennings wasn't, to me, it would still feel like a very different receiver group. Like they're deep until you subtract 1, and then suddenly they're not that deep. Oh, but they got Cowing. You like Cowing. And they got Pearsall. You like Pearsall. Yeah, I like them. None of them's caught a ball on 3rd and 7 in a 2-minute drill when they're getting crushed over the middle yet, let alone a preseason catch. So, yeah, they might be a deep group. But right now, as far as we know, they're Ayuk, Deebo, and Jennings. Those are the guys they go to war with. Is Ricky Pearsall going to become one of those guys? Maybe. Better be. But right now, they got 3 guys they go to war with, Larry. And those 3 guys they need to try and win a Super Bowl this year. You're not trading one of them for a 4th-round pick in June.
Yeah,
if you do, then you are trying less to win the Super Bowl this year.
Unless there's some cap savings that, makes sense. But I agree with you. You're in your window. Why are you moving anybody who handles the football if you like them, right? The only way you would move them is if you thought they would get cut. The springtime is the time that you would move somebody for a draft choice, usually a day 3 pick, because you're convinced that this summer you're going to cut that player. So let's take the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round pick right now instead of cutting him. All right. And here's the last question. I did a video today on a dozen 49ers who I think can have the potential to make major strides forward this year. And I'll give you my 12 guys.
Okay.
And you tell me if you have one that you feel strongly about, either yes or no. Okay. So these are 12 49ers, no particular order, that are going to make major strides in 2024. I have Cam Latu, Jalen Graham, Ronnie Bell, Ben Barch, Jordan Mason, Jordan Elliott, Drake Jackson, Robert Beal Jr., Jair Brown, Samuel Womack, Darrell Luter Jr., and Braden Willis. And of the group, the guy that I feel the most confidence in making a major step forward would be Jair Brown. I think Jair Brown has the potential to be one of the best 49ers and be a Pro Bowler. I think he's got really, really high standards. I was very impressed by how serious he was and how bothered he was by losing the Super Bowl and how driven and focused he was. So I would say Jair Brown would be my number one guy that I think is going to really make a stride. And if I had to go with a second guy, I'd go with Jalen Graham at linebacker. I think those two guys, both on defense, Brown and Graham, are the two guys I would say are going to make the biggest strides forward in 2024. What do you think of that list? And is there anybody who would be, the guys at the top of your list?
Well, Brown would have to be high on that list because of that group. He's played the most, right? I think it's going to be hard. Like, how is Barch going to get on the field? So maybe you're talking about practice development. That could be too.
He could be in the mix at center too. I mean, I think they like him for sure. And who knows if Brendel's not the center, is it to Feliciano maybe to start, but it might be Barch.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe you'd rather leave Feliciano at guard. It's going to be hard for all those guys to hit, right? Because some of them, like, could Luter and Womack both make an impact this year at the same time? Probably one's impact comes at the expense of the other, right?
Luter or Braden Willis and Latu, same thing.
Yeah. Boy, I may lean Willis on that if given the choice between the two. Bell is an interesting one. Again, like, there's not a lot of oxygen in that receiver room, right? For Ronnie Bell to breathe. There's Ayuk takes a lot of breaths. Deebo, and there's guys that aren't in the receiver room that, like, oh, Ronnie, actually, before you breathe, I gotta get this bag of air for McCaffrey, and I gotta get this bag of air for Juszczyk, and I got to get this big bag of air for Kittle. There's just not a lot of oxygen in that receiver room. So,
Ronnie Bell should be looking for a wide receiver trade because I don't see any way without a trade that he has any kind of real impact, even though I like his ability.
Yeah. Did you you said Drake Jackson
And Robert Beal.
Yeah.
I think those guys both take steps forward. But when I asked Kasarik this week about Jackson, he's like, he started talking about his knee injury and how he's rehabbing. And it's like, it was almost like, hey, I don't want to talk about him at all because he's not healthy. Like, he hasn't been healthy all off season. So maybe it's, I like Drake Jackson a lot. You saw him in the Pac-12 doing a lot of Pac-12 work. Did you like him at SC? I mean, he's not.
I liked him as a
great
pick.
week one.
Yeah, I liked him as a pick because he was all over the place at SC. And it wasn't his fault. I liked him as a pick, but he hasn't been healthy. I mean, that's part of this too. He probably, in part, a result of his college career, ran out of gas his first year in the league and then got hurt. So, from that standpoint, you would think there's still some ceiling for him to reach. So I'm hopeful for him.
We got Steve-O who's throwing $5. Can you read that? It says
love the show, but as of now, you can only see half your logo and wired earbuds need to go. I actually disagree with Steve-O on both those counts.
Well, the wired earbuds, I would go with the wireless, but my wife's always trying to convince me that it's like bad for my brain or something. I said, honey, I don't have a brain. And she's like, she agrees with that. But, is the wireless ear? I mean, what are you going with? Can I see this?
Wired earbuds.
Oh, you have wires.
There's a wire.
Where's the wire?
Right here.
Oh, look at you. You're a freaking pro. Maybe I should just do that. Maybe I should just come back here.
That. I like the look personally when everyone's zigging you and Aaron Rodgers zag and wear the wired earbuds.
That's awesome. Yes. Well, and so what's he doesn't like the earbuds, and what's the other one?
The logo behind you can only see half of it.
Oh,
The Krug
if
show.
I did one of these, but you know what? I would feel bad if I did this to Guy because it just doesn't that seem kind of rude? Like, what would you think if I tried
What?
to do a?
Doesn't it seem kind of rude?
What would you think if I tried
kind
to do
of rude? It's completely disrespectful.
Live stream like this.
And now you can put Kev in the little box. You know.
That's funny. All right, on the way out the door, yes or no answer. Will Brandon Staley, Nick Sorensen be an all season long 49er content creator point of drama, or will something either be said or will there be some kind of understanding and that will not be a big story? Or is this going to be every week they allowed X number of points and who's in charge? Is the buck stop with Brandon Staley? Does it stop with Sorensen? I mean, Shanahan's like, Brandon knows who the defensive coordinator is. And then he's like, Nick knows who the defensive coordinator is. Okay, but I mean, one guy's the assistant head coach, the other guy's the defensive coordinator. I mean, I don't know. One guy's got experience doing it, the other guy's doing it for the first time. What do you think? Is that going to be a thing all year, or is that just low-hanging fruit early and we'll get beyond it and it won't be a thing?
I'm going to, I think maybe be in the minority here and say it's not going to be a thing. Maybe I'm not in the minority. I don't know. What really took the Wilkes thing to the next level last year wasn't just that they were struggling, but it was that like the star players had said, there's a little bit of a disconnect here. I don't expect them to say that this year.
What do you got cooking the rest of the week, man? You got big holiday weekend plans.
Yeah.
What's do you only do football? Do you ever do any baseball?
I do. I have.
Do you do Pac-12 baseball?
I didn't this year. The Pac-12 baseball tournament's going on right now. I did not do any Pac-12 baseball this year. But I have done a lot of baseball. I grew up doing baseball. Like I did minor league baseball for a few years.
Your favorite sport to broadcast?
Baseball was my favorite sport growing up. Like it's all like when I say growing up, like early in my career, all I wanted to do was call baseball games, But I think the rhythm of football is just for a announcer, the rhythm of football is the best. Basketball is a lot of fun. They're all fun, but like basketball, the action is going. You don't get, there's not a natural start and stop to every play. Football, there is a natural rhythm. Right, here we go, 3rd and 3, Krueger in the shotgun, right? Like you get to build it up, boom, play, analyst, and then build it up. So the rhythm of calling a football game is really fun. It's perfect. I think it's a perfect kind of rhythm for doing that stuff.
I always think it's a cool career being a play-by-play guy, but then I'll see it'll be like New Year's Eve and Dave Fleming, who's like really talented, and I'll all of a sudden he'll be like, and Dave Fleming here from Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then like the next night he'll be like, and here we are in Tucson. And I'm thinking to myself, man, it was Christmas Eve. You basically, you didn't see your kids or your wife and you're on a plane from Stillwater to Tucson. It takes a lot of the glory and the prestige away for me. When I know these guys are, Saturday I was in Pullman and on Sunday I mean, I don't know.
I would
I'm a family guy.
We'll see how things play out with my play-by-play career, Larry, but
dude, I've heard you. You're very, very underrated. I think
thank you.
Well, I mean, I think that you've got I think there'll be a time when you're like, Krug, I got no time to stream with you. I've got bigger fish to fry.
Well, that time, yeah. I'll always make time, first of all. But yeah, I mean, I guess like anything, you're working towards something. And I've heard it said, I think it's true. There is no mountaintop in life. There's no mountaintop. You're always climbing. You're
just always climbing.
If you're trying to get to the mountaintop, then you're climbing. Maybe where you are is the mountaintop. But I think what that means is like if you're chasing something, you may never actually be satisfied. So you got to enjoy the. They say you got to enjoy the. It's not about the destination; it's about. I think there is like the most truth in that. So much truth in that. Because what does everyone who's at the truly the end of their life, their destination, say like, oh, I wish I'd known that when I thought I was struggling and like that those were the good old days. So I that is one of those that's one of those cliches I 100% buy. But who's got like the Kevin Burkhardt schedule? That's I think Burkhardt cards, from what I can tell, right? KB calls.
Is he a buddy of yours?
NFL. No, but I know him a little. I mean, I message with him from time to time, but
me too.
But
I like him. I think he's really good.
I do too. Yeah, he does the thing that's like one of the hardest things to do, which is just be natural while you're calling a game. Just be yourself. He's a really charismatic guy, right? But
I love him. I'll tell you where I fell in love with his talent was in the baseball studio when he had like Big Hurt, A-Rod, like Big Poppy, you know what I mean? And I just thought, you got all these kind of big personalities and they're talking out of order and they're not really, they're kind of, it's a little helter-skelter and you know what I mean? Yep. And he just seems like
he was really good at it.
He's so good at it that it was like, hey man, you made kind of a rough looking panel as far as who talks when and whose role is what. You made it all work just with kind of having kind of enthusiasm. I feel like he brings great enthusiasm.
He does. Yeah. But it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's authentic. The thing about calling a game, especially a football game, is for me, there's no replacement for that level of energy that you get. Full stadium. They're not cheering for you, but they're cheering at the same time that they're with you, and that's what's fun about it. The crowd is like the greatest instrument, and you get to play with it. So, I can't like really understand what it must be like for a player who retires and then just doesn't get that anymore. But you see some of these videos of these guys, like what it's like to run through that tunnel, and it's a stadium of people, Larry, is just. There's nothing like it.
What about an empty stadium?
Yeah.
Have you ever done a Stanford football game at Stanford when they're playing kind of a nobody and the place holds 45,000, but there's really like 14,000?
I've done all kinds of things that wish there were 14,000 people there.
But that would be hard, I think.
The 14,000, your audio guy can get some good crowd noise for 14,000 people. But it does suck for like to have some big play and then there's no crowd. It's just you need a crowd to make it for it to make it to your highlight reel. Can I ask the last question? Can I ask what's the highlight reel? Like if I said what is the highlight reel moment for you? If you're going to apply for a gig and you're like, you know what? I'm definitely going to send him this. He told me send him an air check. Honey, I'm going to send this to him. I have one. I rebuild it every year. I've got a reel and
what's on the highlight? Is there one play that you can remember that you're like,
oh, well, yes. I mean, there's one play that goes at the front of every single one.
What was
it? It was Zach Wilson's freshman year at BYU, Utah.
Oh, that's a big game in state.
Last game of the year, sold out at Utah. BYU is kicking their ass. This game was on FS1, and BYU is kicking their ass at halftime.
And what year was this?
This is what I guess. What Zach Wilson just finished? How many years in the league? 3 years in college, and then 2 years in the league. 3 years in the league. So 6 years ago.
So 6 years ago. So it was Cam Rising's fourth year there.
Cam Rising shockingly was not there.
It was Cam Rising's redshirt junior year.
Cam had just turned 30.
His kids were applying
this year, man.
Is he back?
He's back. Yeah, he's back.
Oh my God, that guy's he refuses to graduate.
The NIL money.
He's like going to call Chris Winkie and say, "Hey, you got nothing on me, man. I'm
all the Utah guys get an NIL deal with like a local like luxury watch guy, so they get like a watch. So Cam's on his third watch. He's like a Breitling and a Cartier and a Rolex. He's doing well. But Utah comes all the way back. They come storming back. They win the game. And at the end, they score this touchdown in the final minutes and the place is just losing its mind.
And what was
And
your
I had a
call?
good
Can you
call.
reenact it?
My line was,
If you don't like that,
you don't like NBA basketball.
you don't like BYU football.
No, the line was
It wasn't a Grant Napier steal.
It wasn't the Napier steal. No, it's as he's the quarterback's name was Jason Shelley.
Wait a second. I think I can predict it.
What?
You said Jason Shelley. There goes that man.
Hand down, man down. That's what.
Hand down, man down.
Yep.
No, it wasn't that. Okay.
No, so as he's running, part of the call is the timing. Like you want it to punctuate as he's crossing the goal line. And I said a rivalry for generations and a comeback for the ages. That was my line.
Look at that.
And the crowd went bananas. So that really
you can't
that
see.
wouldn't have worked in front of 8,000 people.
You
That
can't
line
see,
would
but
have
there's
felt-
goosebumps there.
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
goosebumps there. There's goosebumps.
It was
Dude,
good.
awesome stuff, man. We always love rapping with you. You're one of the best doing this. I really enjoy our conversations. Have a great holiday weekend, man. And
Thank
you gotta.
too, Larry.
I'll give you a final thought on our way out the door here. What's your final salvo before we say, you know
that's
what?
it. I
It's
got
time
nothing.
to. That's it.
I got nothing else.
There goes that man.
The holiday started 3 hours ago, Larry.
There goes that man.
Yeah, never met a man I've been